Hey everybody, so I am back to discuss the film True to the Game Part 2. Now, I know the film has been out since like last November, but I was attempting to give everyone time to see the film because I understand that the film was released in some theaters, a very limited amount of theaters, and then many of us was waiting for the film to stream, which eventually it began to stream in December. So at this point, since we are in January, I'm just assuming that many people have seen the film, and I want to go ahead and discuss it. Now, listen. Under my book discussion for True to the Game Part 3, I understand the concerns. Many individuals who may not have read the book, or maybe people are just trolling, but there is a lot of individuals who are calling yours truly out in regards to the fact that what I am discussing on my True to the Game Part 3 does not exactly match what has occurred in True to the Game Part 2 film. It wouldn't, okay? The thing is, many films that are adapted from, if I'm saying that correctly, or adapted from books, do not follow the exact storyline word by word. There may be times where you will see that, but I'm going to argue that most of the time when a book becomes a film, there are so many things that are left out. Sometimes the main character is altered altogether, the storyline is altered altogether, or sometimes they manage to stay slightly true, but not quite as much. Maybe a few characters are added, maybe a few characters are taken away. True to the Game in itself is no exception. It does not follow the exact storyline of the book. So when you read the book or you watch my discussion, you will see that. I'm not saying anything in those books, discussions that is not actually occurring in the book, and you would know that if you purchased the book. And that's not to be funny, but it's interesting. I just literally have to chalk it up to maybe those are just trolls at this point, so I don't even read the comments anymore. But I just wanted to make sure I make that clear, because maybe some people genuinely just don't know that when certain books are adapted to film, they don't necessarily follow the exact same storyline, because it has to become film friendly, it has to become big screen friendly, it has to be condensed to meet that amount of time for on-screen performances. So with all of that being said, let's get into the film discussion. So immediately when True to the Game Part 2 comes on, we have this big old shootout. We are immediately introduced to some actors, entertainers, actresses that we know very well, or maybe some of us may know. For example, the entertainer Waka Flocka, Bernice Burgos, Breezy, who I personally know most from the TV show Empire. They get killed. That's the funny thing about it. We see them on screen and they get killed in this big old shootout, which looks like it was set up by Suge as well. And then we see Bria is involved in this, and we're like, what is going on? So basically this scene is us seeing that Suge set this whole thing up for Jarrell's shipment to be hijacked by them, and she's doing it in the name of Quadir, because we hear her right before she kills Waka Flocka. She goes, "This is for Quadir, mother effer." So so with that being said, we know that she is hijacking some, I'm going to say the word street candy, in exchange for drugs throughout this film, just so you all know. So they were hijacking Jarrell's street candy. Now remember, Jarrell is, and I'm saying this kind of in a way for people who may not have seen it, but hopefully if you've seen it, then you're watching this, and hopefully if you haven't, you're not watching this. But just in case, Jarrell, of course, is the man that killed Quadir in the first True to the Game film. There are so many big differences, y'all. So many big differences between True to the Game Part 1 and True to the Game Part 2. And between the book even. So I'm going to do my best not to make this too long, but to be able to still highlight those important differences. So we are introduced to Gina Rollins fairly early in the movie as well, and she is clearly moving on with her life. She works at a magazine company in New York, mind you. So while Bria and Guyette, Gina's grandmother and cousin, are still in Philadelphia, Gina has moved on with her life in New York, working for this, I guess, maybe a big time magazine company or something. And she's throwing herself in her work. She looks a lot healthier. She's working out. She's really just moving on with her life. But we see that her boss feels like she is overworking herself. What he doesn't know is about her personal life, and what she has been through and why that is so. So he forces her to go on a mandatory vacation, which she is reluctant to go on. Now, mind you, working as a receptionist at her place of work is the entertainer Tamar Braxton. And Tamar Braxton, while her role was really small, she did play a very critical role later on in the film, and I'll get to that in a minute. So meanwhile, back in Philadelphia, Bria is pretty much rebelling against her grandmother, Guygette. She's messing around with this boy by the name of Dalvin. She's under Suge's wing as far as mentorship and getting involved in the street candy lifestyle. I mean, after all, she did assist Suge with hijacking Jarrell's shipment. So we also see that Bria has a really good friend, which is actually the entertainer Little Mama, but I cannot remember her character's name for the life of me. So throughout this discussion, I'm just going to call her Little Mama. And Little Mama is a self-proclaimed massage therapist, aka escort, paid for hired services type of woman. And Bria convinces Little Mama to take on her portion of the street candy to sell it to her escorts. And Little Mama, while reluctant and trying to school Bria on what she's getting herself into, go ahead with the request. And, you know, because I guess Bria threw in that she would give her a percentage of the sales from the street candy. Keep in mind that Guygette is completely out of the loop when it comes to Suge and Bria's professional relationship. But Suge is still really cool with Guygette. She comes over and she visits Guygette, but unfortunately Guygette isn't aware that Suge has taken Bria under her wing and put her a part of this, you know, allowed her to be a part of that life, because I'm sure if she knew, she would not be pleased. Anyway, Jarrell, in the meanwhile, he has a best friend by the name of Salim, who is played by Jeremy Meeks, aka Prison Bae. Anyway, they end up basically interrogating Titus, who was the one that was responsible for the shipment of Jarrell that was hijacked by Suge. They end up interrogating him to get as much information as they can out of him in regards to what he remembered seeing or who he remembered seeing when the hijacking took place. Mind you, Titus was actually a character from True to the Game Part 1. He was like this man that we saw at the very beginning at that club where Gina first met Quadir. I don't know if he owned the club or he was managing the club, but he was there at the club, okay, at the front desk. And eventually he went on throughout the film to kind of be Jarrell's eyes and ears and inside man in regards to having information on who Quadir was. He actually was kind of fanatic about Quadir, which made Jarrell even more upset. Like Jarrell, you can even tell in this film, Jarrell does not like people talking about Quadir because Jarrell pretty much wanted to be Quadir. So those become kind of like the main storylines in this film. We have Jarrell and his partner Salim, who are on this hunt to find out who took Jarrell's shipment. Meanwhile, Jarrell is also wondering where is Quadir's money. He's aware that Quadir has some ends and he wants those ends, and eventually he puts two and two together that Gina, Quadir's fiance, clearly has the money. And then we also have Bria, who becomes the target of Salim because it is put together that she was a part of the whole thing. Like Titus saw her face during that hijacking with her and Suge. So while Titus may not have been aware that it was also Suge, he definitely knew that it was Bria, and Salim eventually learned of this information as well. And there was this memorial for Quadir that the family or Guygette and Bria wanted Gina to come back home for, which Gina ends up going to California for a writing opportunity that she receives, mind you. So she missed the memorial, but at this memorial for Quadir, which was set up by his mother, and many people felt like the mother did it for clout, Salim attends the memorial, right? Like, how cold-blooded. This fool his partner or his boss Jarrell is the reason why Quadir is dead, and here he is at the memorial of Quadir, but they're heartless and they just don't care. Street life, right? So Salim is at that memorial, and there he sees Bria, so he knows that who Bria is at this point, and he knows that it is actually Gina's cousin. So now his goal is to figure out how he can get Bria, because he needs to get her in order to find out where is Jarrell's shipment, because the shipment is very important. Basically, what is being expressed throughout the film by Jarrell is that he's running low on street candy. If he runs low on street candy, he runs the risk of the individuals that he supplied to turning to another supplier, and therefore that supplier will take over the street life, the street game or whatever, and he can't have that happen. He worked hard for his territory, and he also acquired Quadir's territory after killing him, so he wants to maintain his territory. By the way, before it even gets to the point where they figure out that it's Bria, Jarrell approaches Raysan. Now, some of you may remember Raysan from the previous True to the Game film. Raysan was dating Gina's best friend, who was killed in the first True to the Game. I don't know if you want to call it dating. She kind of played a brother, really, but he was so nice, just wanted somebody, and unfortunately it just didn't work out for him. He even tried to get Gina at the end. I was like, really, dude? Really? Your deceased boss fiance? No, and Gina was not having it. But anyway, Raysan did appear in this film very briefly, because Jarrell was basically interrogating him, trying to find out if he was the one responsible for hijacking Jarrell's shipment in the name of Quadir, or if at the least he wouldn't know who would do it. And Raysan just kept telling him, I don't know, I'm out that life. And Jarrell didn't care. Jarrell killed him. Poor Raysan, right? Brother just can't catch a break, So, peace and love to Raysan. So we also see that Jarrell has a brother that is currently serving some sort of sentence, and he is actually announcing to Jarrell that he is getting ready to get out of jail soon. I am actually jumping from past tense to current tense with my dialogue here, with my discussion. Forgive me for that. I'm all over the place. But anyway, Jarrell calls his brother by the name of T. Now, if you don't remember from my book discussion, we are actually introduced to Jarrell's twin brother, Terrell, that's with a T, Terrell, by part 3. And I think what is happening here, what we're being introduced to, is this character that will go on to fulfill those roles that Terrell plays in the part 3 of the book. So by part 3 of the film, we'll probably see more of this brother, who also made an announcement in this film that he was getting ready to be released from prison. And his brother Jarrell said, like, hey, I can come pick you up. That's great news. And so, we see that play out, which eventually we also see that Jarrell is not able to pick up his brother. But also we notice that there is some tension between Terrell or T, if you want to call him that, and Salim, Jarrell's handyman, his main man. And I believe that's probably because at some point Jarrell and Terrell was probably rolling strong together. Mind you, they're supposed to be twins according to the book, so they probably were rolling strong together at one point. But then when Terrell perhaps got locked up, Salim took over that side man position, or whatever you call it, sidekick position, or whatever, right hand man position. So Terrell actually doesn't trust him. So that's going to be very interesting, y'all, to move forward into part 3, especially seeing, for those who saw the film, who know of Jarrell's ultimate demise in this film, how Terrell is going to react to that. And if Salim survives this film, will the two end up meeting and clashing over that? So that's going to be very interesting. Keep that in mind moving towards part 3 of the film. So going back to Gina now, Gina ends up meeting with the entertainer, actress, reality star, Juju. Many of you know and actually wrote down her real name. I think it's Juliet Castaneda. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, so I apologize. But Juju, we know her as Juju from some Love and Hip Hop New York, I think. But anyway, she ends up meeting up with her in regards to that writing opportunity with for to interview a man by the name of Carlos Sanchez, who I think is like this wealthy marijuana business type tycoon man, or whatever the case may be. And Gina is very excited about the opportunity, so she interviews with Juju, and she apparently is a good fit. She's told that she's going to get this Airbnb, she's going to be paid $100 a day, and some other stuff, right? So that is what is happening with her, and that's what ends up taking her to California. Meanwhile, Jarrell and Salim has this serious discussion where they basically are trying to eliminate the possibilities of who has Quadir's money. So while there is still this aspect of finding Jarrell's shipment, there's also this aspect of figuring out who has Quadir's money, because for some magical reason, Jarrell is aware that Quadir had loads of cash. I guess he heard, word on the street was Quadir had all this cash. In fact, his exact words was, Quadir has those M's. Okay, I'm gonna tell you, there was quite a bit of slang used in this movie that I just did not know what the heck was saying, but I kind of think I know that one. That probably stands for millions. Listen. Anyway, when they had this discussion and they put two and two together, they realized that it had to be Gina. So Jarrell wound up having some female call up to Gina's job, where Tamar Braxton again was the receptionist, and just pretended to be someone delivering flowers to Gina, which ultimately Tamar Braxton character gives up Gina's personal information, which I'm sure is against some sort of HIPAA regulations. But anyway, she ends up giving up the address to the person over the phone, and that person gives Jarrell the address, and Jarrell shows up at the house, and the doorman gives him Gina's itinerary once he pretends to be Gina's concerned cousin, and etc. So that's how he learns of Gina's whereabouts. So we see all that, and then most of the film takes place between Philadelphia and California, where Salim is back in Philadelphia handling the situation with Bria, making these collection runs for Jarrell, kind of killing everybody, mind you, that he's making these collection runs from, which is interesting because it's like, how y'all gonna sell your street candy if Salim is out here killing everyone that's supposed to sell it? Meanwhile, Jarrell is in California tracking Gina, and we see that play out for the film. So it is also worth noting that the entertainer Rotimi, if I haven't mentioned this already, was also in the film. He played a character by the name of Vaughn, and basically Vaughn was the person that Jarrell and Salim turned to re-up on their street candy, seeing as their shipment had been stolen. And they pretty much let it be known in that scene that they were asking Vaughn, also played by, aka Rotimi, they were letting it be known that they were trying to keep this on the low. They did not want individuals in the street to know that that Jarrell had no product, and that he was copying from Vaughn up in New York, and he's from Philadelphia, mind you. So his goal was to take it back to the individual selling it for him in Philadelphia. And the reason being is because, again, he not only had his territory that he had acquired, but he also had Quadir's territory, and he wanted to maintain his status in the streets. And Vaughn did agree that he would keep things quiet. So that is something else to look forward to in True to the Game Part 3. I'm wondering if they'll reprise Rotimi's character Vaughn in True to the Game Part 3 in regards to that whole scenario. But he is in New York, so it just depends if they're going to keep the setting mainly in Philadelphia, or will they indulge in New York, or will Vaughn come to Philadelphia? So that's going to be interesting to see later on. So I don't want to go verbatim for every single scene, but that's just pretty much the setup from there on out. I do like the fact that Gina met this guy by the name of Mark. Listen, I'm gonna be real controversial here. I love Quadir. I think Quadir and Gina's relationship is unmatched. However, let's be real. That situation was toxic, especially when it comes to the book. Now, the movie version may be a little healthier than the book version. The reason why I say that is because at least in the first film, Quadir was ready to walk away from everything. He was ready to let all of that go and live a normal life with Gina, versus the book, where it doesn't seem like Quadir was really trying to get out the game just yet. I don't know. I didn't really read the first book, but anyway, I feel like, maybe when they first met and Quadir was a part of their life, that's where things was toxic, and I wouldn't recommend that for any woman, But with Mark, this man that Gina meets in California, who's like the one that's supposed to take her around to see, make sure she's comfortable at her Airbnb, I guess. I don't know who he really was. I don't know if he was the owner of the Airbnb or what. But anyway, he was just very attentive to her, very sweet, trying to make sure that she got out, got some air, got to see California. And then he invited her to a little extracurricular activities on the beach. And I just thought that for me to see Gina go from that heartache that she was experiencing with Quadir and the things that she left behind in Philadelphia to now in California in the presence of what seems like someone who is level-headed and really not into that life, very handsome, easy on the eyes, and just he seemed really, really good for her. It was a good look. It was a good thing to see. Like, yay, like I'm rooting for her. But unfortunately, that was short-lived because Jarrell was on a mission to get to Gina. And I guess his plan was to persuade her into thinking that he was into her intimately, but in order to do that, he would have to get her into him and only him. And that means moving Mark out the way. So if you saw the film, he beat the crap out of Mark and threatened him to stay away from Gina, which really had me upset. I was like, really? She had a chance at some healthy love here, a healthy, relationship. She deserved it. She'd been through enough trauma. And unfortunately, Jarrell beat the crap out of him. And eventually, Mark played a major role in saving Gina's life, in my opinion, towards the end, because when Gina was finally alone, and maybe I'm jumping too far ahead, so I'm going to get back to that. But before I get to that, remember back with Salim in Philadelphia, the whole Bria situation, Salim actually uses Bria's boyfriend, Dalvin. We see that. Now, the interesting thing about the book is her boyfriend, Bria's boyfriend in the book, he was for her. And I believe he was actually killed. I can't remember. I thought he was killed. I don't know. But he definitely was shot in the book. But I could have sworn he was killed. And actually it was not even by Salim. It was by Jarrell. That's where the book and the movie is very different. Because see, in the book, Jarrell had just got out of prison. And he was going on this extreme hunt to make collections from individuals who owed him on the streets, who had possession of his products as well as his money, and they never came to see him in the years that he was in jail or whatever the case may be, and they were spending up his stuff. So he went and killed them. He was like the Salim of the book, but in the film they made Jarrell more of the individual who just told Salim to do the things that he desired to do. Instead, he would just tell Salim to do it. Salim was more so of the Jarrell character that was represented in the book. So he was kind of like that extension of Jarrell, that dark side of Jarrell in the film. So I thought that was interesting. But Salim basically used Bria's boyfriend, as far as the film goes, to set Bria up, and Bria's boyfriend Dalvin willingly did so because of the fact that he was very hurt by when he wore his heart on the sleeve and told Bria he wanted to be exclusive. She pretty much was like, no, I'm good. I like what we have. But I thought that was interesting because he actually mentions prior to that moment, he mentions to her, he was the one that said he didn't want to be exclusive. And he was like, oh, but if one of us start catching feelings, and she was like, don't you mean you're starting to catch feelings? Like, you're the one that told me you didn't want to be exclusive. So now he wanted to be salty because his pride was hurt, unfortunately. And he was more than willing to set Bria up. Plus, he was just scared of Salim. Salim is a scary man. So he was just pretty much scared of Salim. Anyway, Salim threw him in the trunk and was basically threatening him. So he willingly, in my opinion, set Bria up, but also out of fear of Salim. And when he did that, his goal was to trap Bria and I guess inject her with something, maybe something that was going to get her drugged up and kidnap her and take her to Salim, I suppose. But of course, we know that did not work. Bria wound up calling Suge, and Suge came to the rescue, and they took on Dalvin together, and they got out of there. Salim himself ended up being shot by Little Mama because throughout the film, Salim was messing around with Little Mama's character, and Little Mama knew that he was catching on to Bria. But I do like her character. He liked her character more than I liked her character. And I think that's the only thing that kept her alive, is the fact that she really was Salim's weakness. For a man that's very treacherous, heartless, and murderous, she was his weakness. He really liked her. And he was getting ready to kill her And she managed to get the upper hand in that moment and shoot him first. I do not believe he's dead. That's me personally. I do believe he will go on to True to the Game Part 3. And I do believe there will be conflict between him and Jarrell's twin brother Terrell once Terrell learns of his brother Jarrell's fate from True to the Game Part 2, which I'm about to get to. So going back to California now, that's everything that went down there, right? Everything that has went down there. So getting back to Gina in California, you know, she becomes close to Jarrell. Now, here's another distinction between the book. And the book is completely different, y'all. The book is heavily different than the film. So with the book, Gina is spending way more time with Jarrell. She has way more time she spent with Jarrell. There is no Mark. There is no other man. It's just her and Jarrell that begin this relationship with each other. And there is many moments through the book where they are intimate. The book goes into heavy details. Yes, I'm blushing. It goes into heavy details in regards to their intimacy. So much so that she becomes pregnant by Jarrell. And she was very excited about it because she had no idea that Jarrell was setting her up all along. Jarrell, I don't think ever learned about her pregnancy, mind you, prior to his fate. But this is where some issues was coming in with my book discussion. People were like, oh, you saying she's pregnant? She's not pregnant. She never even slept with him in the movie. Well, here's the thing. Think about it now. I'm not saying they wrote it this way in the film, but you have to think about it. When Jarrell took Gina on the yacht and they got off the yacht and they were standing on the docks in that little romantic moment, as romantic as it can get with Jarrell, right? Gina says to Jarrell, so what are you doing tonight? What are your plans tonight? Sorry, y'all. Gina says to Jarrell, what are your plans tonight? And Jarrell is like, nothing, just chilling. And Gina goes, cause I wanna return the favor. And she starts kissing him. Like, come on now. What does return the favor mean to you all? Like, what do y'all really think happened after they started kissing? So that is the thing. If I am correct, okay, but again, there is a heavy contrast between the film and the book. My theory is in that moment, if the writers want to go on for part 3 and carry out some of the actual book storyline, there's still room there to try to say that perhaps Gina could be pregnant by Jarrell, or she may suspect she is. Maybe they may carry on the storyline where she suspects it, but then kind of find out she's not pregnant after all. But there is still room for that storyline, and mind you, that's in the book. That is definitely in the book. But maybe there's still room for that storyline because of the fact that while they did not actually show Jarrell and Gina being intimate, there was that moment where she said what she said and they began to kiss, and it kind of makes you wonder, how did she return the favor? Okay. I don't return favors that way, but to each their own. Now, going back to the film, so I guess we're supposed to insinuate that they had been dating, and then there was that moment at the end where Gina is in the house with Jarrell, her Airbnb, okay, with Jarrell, and that's when all hell breaks loose. So she gets that call from Mark, and Mark is like, yo, this dude beat me up. You know, I ain't mean to ghost you, but this dude beat me up in the name of you. And she's like asking, describe him, and I think she realizes it's Jarrell. But then again, I thought so. But what I recognize is she didn't realize it was Jarrell. And I'm going to tell you why that is. When she was on the phone with Mark, she said, I'm going to come see you. So her urgency to leave the Airbnb where her and Jarrell was dwelling, or her and Jarrell was at in that very scene, wasn't because she knew that Jarrell, in my opinion, Jarrell was the one that beat up Mark. It was because she was just trying to simply go see Mark so she could learn that he was okay and learn exactly the details of the incident. Because the reason why I say that was she was still very calm. Her demeanor towards Jarrell was still very calm, and it was very genuine. She just told Jarrell something came up and she had to go. And then when Jarrell punched her and she woke up, she went, did you hit me? And then she said, why? So that's how you know she really did not know that it was Jarrell, because she was still confused. Like, why would he hit me? And that's when I realized she didn't know it was Jarrell just yet that beat up Mark. But he was already just quick to get the crap over with. Like, he just wanted to get it over with. He wasn't falling for Gina at all, like Salim tried to joke and say earlier in the film. He was about his money. Maybe I think if anything, Jarrell wanted Quadir's life. more than he even wanted Gina. Like, I don't think he necessarily wanted Gina, but I think he wanted Quadir's life. And there was a moment where he was holding a photo of Quadir and Gina, and it kind of made him mad. I think it was just Quadir. I think he was genuinely just obsessed with Quadir and Quadir's success, and he wanted to be Quadir. Mind you, in the first film, the way he tried to go to Quadir and work with Quadir, and Quadir just basically brushed him off like, no, I see you for what you are. No. And I think that really infuriated him and made him feel belittled. And ever since then, he just hasn't gotten over that. So, y'all, the end of the scene, I know everyone who has seen it was, or maybe most likely most of us who are fans of the film and the book, and when it came to that ending, we probably were like throwing popcorn at the screen, getting hyped up, screaming in the theater, screaming at home, whatever the case may be. Throughout the film, there was a black Mercedes that continued to tell Gina. I don't know if y'all caught on to that, but throughout the film, there was this black Mercedes. Wherever Gina was at, the black Mercedes was there. She was, I think, getting ready to meet with Carlos Sanchez, who I totally forgot to mention. I'm going to get to that in a minute. And the black Mercedes was there. She was at the beach with Mark, having fun with Mark, mind you. The black Mercedes was there. Then at the end, the black Mercedes was there. But before I get to that ending, I forgot to mention Carlos Sanchez, which he plays a very pivotal role as well. Carlos Sanchez, mind you, Gina went to California because she got this writing opportunity to write about this marijuana mogul by the name of Carlos Sanchez. Carlos Sanchez is actually a character from True to the Game Part 1. He was the man that Quadir met up with, and I guess he was doing business dealings with in California. That time where Quadir took Gina onto that trip in California, he was meeting with a man by the name of Carlos Sanchez. By the way, I'm no CPA, okay? I'm no tax expert, but that is actually quite intelligent of Quadir. If he had a legitimate business, okay, and he took his woman on a vacation to California and he went and did some business while out there, he could write that off on his taxes, y'all. Listen, y'all got to forgive me. That is the tax enthusiast inside of me. But anyway, that is where this Carlos Sanchez character comes in. So when Gina finally meets with Carlos Sanchez to do the interview that she was sent out there to do, he's like, I don't want to do all that. I don't want to do all that. And she's just confused, like, what? He's like, ask me what you really want to ask me. And she's like, what? And he's like, I knew Quadir. And that's when he goes on to explain that, you know, he was Quadir's business partner, and he knew of her because when Quadir came out there and brought her with him, Quadir was the happiest he had ever seen him. So that is where the whole Carlos Sanchez situation comes in, y'all. Very, I forgot about that. That's very important. So going back to the final scene of the film, or the end of the film, where Gina is getting beat up by Jarrell, who is asking her, like, where's the money? Where's the money? And he keeps knocking her out. So how is she going to answer? That was interesting. But anyway, Jarrell ends up going upstairs, and of course we know Quadir came into the home. There goes that black Mercedes pulling up in front of the Airbnb, and it's Quadir, and we are excited. I don't know about you all, but I was screaming. I'll admit I was screaming because I don't know, you know, we know who Quadir is, but it's like, okay, Quadir has a past. We all got a past, right? So Quadir has this past, but at the same time, he did want to leave the game. He was attempting to leave the game. And, you know, he's a reformed man. He just wants to be with his woman, y'all. And so that's why I root for him. So Quadir comes out, you know, from the dead, mind you. He's supposed to be dead, but he ain't dead. So we gonna get them answers in True to the Game Part 3, I suppose. And he sees Gina on the floor. He like to lose his mind, y'all. And he is like, you know what? I'll be back, baby, or something. He said, I promise. I was kind of laughing like, dude, you know, she knocked out. She unconscious. She probably can't hear you. But anyway, he ends up going upstairs, and Jarrell looks at him like he saw a ghost, because technically he was seeing a ghost. He thought he killed him. And Jarrell even made some little slick comment about, I guess I'm going to have to kill you twice. And Quadir had his gun drawn, but Jarrell's like, oh, really? You know, you know, let's square up. So Quadir did that, and that's where the fun began. And I mentioned this in my other discussion, my brief discussion about True to the Game Part 2 film, that fight scene, y'all, was one of the best fight scenes I've seen in a while. It was very simplistic, but at the same time, that simplicity, I really feel like it contributes to its reality. Like, I can really see something like that unfolding. I don't want to see it, but I can really see a fight scene like that unfold. And I think the emotions for me of the fact that this is this man who is fighting for the love of his woman and her life, basically, because, and not to mention, it's not only that he's fighting for, he's also fighting the man that technically killed him. So that in itself, it was just like, child, is there such thing as a sexy fight scene? That was a sexy fight scene. Listen, anyway, we know that Quadir winds up getting the upper hand. Did y'all see the part where he punched the wall? I would just like to point that out. I was like, woo, glad I'm not that wall. But anyway, he ends up getting the upper hand, and he chokes out, or I guess you could say chokes out Jarrell and kills him. And then he shoots him just to make sure that he's dead, right? And he takes Gina and he goes to some place, and the way he just so tender with Gina and so attentive, and it was just beautiful. It was very beautiful. Now, like I said earlier, I did want things to work out between her and Mark, but I'm gonna need Mark to take some self-defense classes. I'm gonna need him to be able to fight, to be able to protect any woman that he encounters. So at the least, we know Quadir is like gonna go, he's gonna fight for his woman, and he's able to actually do so. So with all of that being said, the film was really good. That ending, at least that ending, was very similar to the book. It did play out a little differently than the book, but it really was very similar to the book. And again, the situation with the Airbnb, that's not exactly what happened in the book. And the book ended in Philadelphia. It started in Philadelphia. It ended in Philadelphia, I think. But I know it ended in Philadelphia, I think. It definitely did not involve California. That's what I do know for certain. But I believe the ending played out exactly the same, because towards the end of the book, Jarrell was beating up Gina at some sort of hotel, because they were at a hotel or motel or something together, and he was beating her up with the intentions of killing her, because at that point he had bought the items, I hate even thinking about it, the items necessary to basically dispose of a body, and he was planning on killing her, but she was actually planning on telling him that she was pregnant. So you see, there is a huge contrast between the film and the book. Also, I mentioned in the book discussion, there was the issue of the police. There was a lot of crooked police involved, a lot of crooked detectives. Well, if you look at the film, Titus is now working with what seems to be, I don't know if they are the ATF, the FBI, one of them alphabet boys. He working with them. And there's even an after scene. If some of you stuck around to watch the after credits of True to the Game Part 2, you would have seen that Titus is talking to those alphabet boys, and he's like, so we're partners, right? So Titus is gone straight snitch. Like, he's now working with the law enforcement because he recognizes that Jarrell ain't got his back. Jarrell would have killed him. And he thought he was partners with Jarrell, and that's just simply not the case. So he see that his loyalty has been misplaced, and he is now devoting his loyalty to the alphabet boys. And part of those alphabet boys, we have Darius McCrae, the actor Darius McCrae, who is part of the alphabet boys. Like I said, I don't know who they are. I don't know if they're the ATF, the FBI, ABC, 1, 2, 3. He's a part of them, and we would probably, hopefully, see Darius McCrae carried on into True to the Game Part 3. So yeah, we know Jarrell is dead. Jarrell is gone. He ain't coming back, right? But that's why I believe that Terrell is going to be a very pivotal character for Part 3. I believe he is going to be after Gina and Quadir, and I don't think Salim is dead, so I think Salim will be there to help Terrell. It may either push the two together, but I think it's going to be an interesting dynamic if that works out, because Salim and Terrell apparently don't get along. So it's going to be very interesting moving forward. Little mama, she lived, she shot Salim and lived, so I think she's going to be probably in Part 3, if they choose to write it this way, where we also see that Salim has beef with her and is going to be trying to go after her as well. So it's going to be interesting, y'all. But that is it. I know this was quite lengthy, almost as long as the movie, but I really, really wanted to do a thorough book discussion. And looking at my notes, my co-host here, my notes, I believe I have discussed just about everything that I wanted to discuss. So anyway, that is it. Let me know what you all think about the film. Did you like it? Did you love it? What are your complaints? What are the pros? What are the cons? How do you feel about the contrast between the film and the books? What actors and actresses you are looking forward to seeing in the next film? So that's it. I'll talk to y'all soon. Peace.